Happy Natlan Release Week, everyone! I'm your Leafy Lore Keeper Minzliff, and I read the Genshin Impact lore so that you don't have to. This video will contain a summary of the 5.0 Archon Quest, both Act 1 and Act 2, as well as analysis and speculations about Natlan and its plot post-Archon Quest. We're gonna talk about Xbalanque, Capitano, and Mavuika in a sec. I promise there's a lot to talk about, but for now, here's the recap. Act 1 begins with the end of Fontaine. Some of the cast bid you adieu as you embark on your journey to Natlan. This is probably my favorite nation send-off so far. Sumerus was super cute also, but the only thing that would have made this moment better was, I don't know, Neuvillette appearing, but this was still super cute. Welcome to Natlan. It's known as the Land of Dragons because humans and Saurians coexist peacefully as each other's companions. It's also known as a nation of war because for at least 500 years, the nation has been in constant battle with the Abyss. Every year, the 6 tribes of Natlan participate in a tournament known as the Pilgrimage of the Return of the Sacred Flame to determine the 5 strongest warriors of the entire region. The chosen 5 take part in the Night Warden Wars. They're essentially sent off to defend Natlan against the Abyss, and the chance to be recognized as a hero and take part in the Night Warden Wars are considered to be the highest honor. This is where we meet Kachina, a young warrior from the Nenetskayan tribe or the Children of Echoes, and this is her predicament. The Pilgrimage is a tournament that's broken up into 2 parts. First is a co-op round where teams battle to capture sacred flames. Then whoever survives from the co-op battles gets sent into round 2, which is just individual 1v1s. Poor Kachina unfortunately has trouble locking in teammates for the first round, and this has been an ongoing issue for her for years now. Whenever the pilgrimage draws close, people avoid her in fear that she'll ask them to be her teammate. Over time, people's lack of faith in her has severely whittled down her confidence, and she has deep doubts as to why she was even chosen as an Ancient Name Bearer. Ancient Names are special titles given to certain members of the 6 tribes. Each ancient name is associated with the heroic deeds of its previous bearers, and it's also seen as a way to immortalize Natlan's history. Bearers are given obsidian stones with an inscribed ancient name, and this ancient name becomes a source of inspiration for them in battle. Just note, it technically doesn't give them any special powers or anything. It's more seen as a tool for mental fortitude. The ones who determine which person is deserving of an ancient name are the Wayab, an entity from an underground realm that protects and provides wisdom to the people of Natlan. Wayab are able to see the past and the future. Each tribe has its own Wayab that it calls upon for protection and blessings. We'll cover this more in detail later. Kachina is the bearer of the ancient name Utabiti, and the previous bearer of her name fought in 27 Night Warden Wars, so she puts a lot of pressure on herself to try to add her own legacy to her ancient name. For context, Kachina hasn't participated in a single Night Warden War, since she never made it that far in the pilgrimage to qualify being drafted for it. Traveler and Paimon offer to be her teammates, but unfortunately, only people from Natlan are allowed to join the pilgrimage. Kachina gives the 2 a tour of her tribe, and the final stop is the Pyro Statue of the 7. Paimon insists for Traveler to try resonating with the Pyro element, but something strange happens. Traveler doesn't sense any elemental energy in the Statue of the 7, so they're unable to resonate with the Pyro element. Yeah, so for anyone hoping to use Pyro Traveler, we're probably gonna have to wait a little longer. Also note that so far, Traveler is the only one who seems to be able to wield all elements at once. The group decide to head over to the Stadium of the Sacred Fire since Kachina has the pilgrimage and Traveler and Paimon have questions for the Pyro Archon. On the way there, we learn that the role of the Pyro Archon operates way differently than in any other region. First of all, according to Kachina, every Pyro Archon in Natlan was an ordinary human before taking on the role. This is technically the first time we're potentially seeing a human Archon since Vrina's situation was more of an edge case. It's similar but not quite the same. As a normie human, the Pyro Archon experiences the natural course of aging, which means many people have taken up the title of Pyro Archon in Natlan over the years. The pilgrimage is actually how the next Pyro Archon is selected, and anyone is eligible to claim this title. The current Archon Mavuika was said to have achieved an overwhelming victory. So for clarification, it doesn't mean that a new Pyro Archon is elected every year. Probably just when the previous one becomes old and a new one needs to be elected. The Archon candidates need to achieve numerous victories or their strength has to be incredibly undeniable. Despite her strength, the current Archon Mavuika is said to be kind and understanding. The group arrive at the Stadium of the Sacred Flame, and there we meet Kachina's friends, fellow ancient name bearers Kinich and Mualani. Since Kachina has no teammates for the pilgrimage, Mualani decides to leave her own team to be Kachina's teammate. Kinich agrees to take over Mualani's team instead. Again, the point of the pilgrimage is not only to potentially elect the next Pyro Archon, but also to get the chance to enlist in the Night Warden Wars and join the eternal fight to protect the nation from the Abyss. All for the glory of Natlan, of course. But wait, this sounds dangerous, and fighting with the Abyss usually comes with the massive possibility of dying in battle. So this is where the Ode of Resurrection comes into play. It's in the name, so the Ode of Resurrection basically resurrects people who die in the Night Warden Wars. However, the Pyro Archon can't go willy-nilly resurrecting everyone. I'm sorry, La Senora Mains. The Ode of Resurrection has two limitations. Number one, the Ode only works on ancient name bearers. Kinich, as an ancient name bearer, has been resurrected in the past. Mualani, also a bearer and a longtime champion of the Night Warden Wars, has never needed to be resurrected. So, sorry Kinich, it's a skill issue and Ahau probably agrees. This rule is also why ordinary non-bearers are not sent to the Night Warden Wars, even if they're victorious in the pilgrimage. Number 2, victory. The victors shall burn bright while the losers must turn to ash. This means only those who die victorious in the Night Warden Wars can be resurrected. Defeat in battle not only means death, but the destruction of your ancient name, meaning it can never be inherited by future bearers again. So, as an example, let's say Kachina, who bears the ancient name of Utabiti, somehow makes it through the pilgrimage and gets drafted as one of the 5 final victors into the Night Warden Wars. If she loses, or the rest of her team loses in battle, and she dies in the Night Warden Wars, then she can't be resurrected, and on top of that, the ancient name of Utabiti dies with her. No one can inherit that name or legacy anymore in the future. Just one person from the 5 needs to come back victorious for the Ode of Resurrection to take effect. Otherwise, the tales and names of the vanquished are eventually forgotten. So, what happens when you die in battle? According to Kinich, you end up in the spiritual realm of the Wayap. This spiritual realm is known as the Night Kingdom, a mysterious liminal space between body and mind and life and death. In order to resurrect the dead, the Pyro Archon will walk through the sacred flame, enter the Night Kingdom, and retrieve the fallen name-bearer. Now back to the story. Kachina and Mualani register as a team, and the group hangs out later that evening to give Kachina a pep talk. Even though it's not her first pilgrimage, it is her first real shot at progressing far. Girlie's on a 7 or 8 losing streak, okay? She needs this dub. Now comes the day of the pilgrimage. Round 1 is a team battle in which the strongest teams are expected to collect contending fire through combat. Contending fire can only be produced by the people of Natlan in battle, which is why Traveler and Paimon can't join to begin with. They would just inhibit the production of this contending fire. Those who successfully return with sufficient contending fire will make it through to the next round. The reason this is so important is because contending fire is fed to the sacred flame of Natlan, and this sacred flame has been burning away for centuries to keep the nation from getting completely consumed by the Abyss. This is the first time we see the Pyro Archon Mavuika in all her blazing glory. She introduces the pilgrimage with a speech and then sends the contestants away. Kachina and Mualani pass round 1 with flying colors. Later that evening, Kachina is harassed by some NPC contestants who felt she didn't deserve to win, and Traveler steps in for her. I love this scene so much because honestly, after this quest, I'll beat anyone who tries to fight Kachina. Now it's time for round 2. Round 2 is more straightforward since it's just a series of 1v1s. You get to play as Kachina and feel like you're actually participating in the pilgrimage. It's pretty cool. In the end, due to their similar scores, Kachina's final opponent is Mualani. Mualani encourages Kachina to try her best to win for her desire to join the Night Warden Wars. And so she does, and Kachina emerges victorious. The 5 winners are decided, and among them are Chaska, Yansan, and our beloved Kachina. Pyro Archon Mavuika congratulates the victors and sends them off into the Night Warden Wars to crush the Abyss and seize victory and glory for Natlan. Man, they grow up so fast, our little baby's off to war. While Kachina's away, Mualani invites Traveler and Paimon to her tribe, the People of the Springs. We'll cover more information on the 6 tribes of Natlan later on in the video. Trust, I want to give Kinich a spotlight at some point because we barely saw him in this quest. This is honestly a place I'd want to visit in that land because it's the land of hot springs and relaxation. Outlanders have to bathe in the artificial hot springs first in order to adjust to the high temperatures of the natural springs. It's basically just a safety precaution for non-natives. And Mualani does something no other character has gotten Traveler and Paimon to do before. She gets them to change their clothes. This part was so surreal to me because we haven't seen Traveler and Paimon in other clothes in canon yet. So thanks, Mualani. There they meet Atea, one of the legendary heroes of Mualani's tribe. Atea was known for her valiant victories and her love of hot springs and partying. One of her hot spring buddies was actually Mavuika herself. Unfortunately, during a battle with the Abyss, she was impaled in the abdomen by an abyssal monster. Although doctors were able to save her life, abyssal power still runs through her body, and since abyssal power is corrosive in nature, if she uses the hot springs, the heat will accelerate the corrosion of her internal organs. It'll basically kill her faster. Lately, however, Atea has been spotted using a private hot spring at night by some tribespeople. They conclude that Atea's illness must be improving if she's able to use the hot springs again. Mualani and her friends plan to decorate the private hot spring for Atea's use and throw a party in celebration of her supposed recovery. Later that evening, Traveler and Paimon wake up to the sound of fighting. Abyssal monsters have attacked the tribe, so the group steps in to stop the invasion. The Abyss has taken over the Night Kingdom, the realm of the Wayab. Abyssal pylons are a kind of gate created by the Abyss to allow monsters from the Night Kingdom to enter the physical world. Mualani and Traveler take down this abyssal pylon only to find out that one has spawned close to the hot spring they just decorated for Atea. Fortunately, Atea herself made it to the hot spring to destroy the abyssal pylon there, but her exposure to abyssal corruption has finally begun taking its toll on her. This is where something cool happens. Traveler purifies Atea's abyssal corruption. This is such a nice callback to the first Archon quest. If you remember, Traveler was able to purify the abyssal corruption from Dvalin's teardrops. It hasn't really been addressed since then, and my hope is that we'll finally explore more of Traveler's powers in that land. Because we still don't really have a concrete explanation for this. The tribe celebrates Atea's recovery, but Atea pulls Traveler and Mualani aside to tell them the truth. Atea is already aware that even with Traveler purifying her abyssal corruption, the damage that it already done to her body is beyond repair. She's dying, and she'd just been bathing in the hot springs to enjoy them for as long as she had left. Since she doesn't have long left to live, Atea entrusts Traveler and Mualani with her talisman, an artifact she'd been carrying her whole life. They're tasked with delivering this talisman to her friend, Mavuika. And this is where Act 1, Flowers Resplendent on the Sun-Scorched Sojourn, ends. Act 2 begins with Tanina letting the group know that Kachina and her team are back from the Night Warden Wars. Unfortunately, Kachina died in battle, but since her team came back victorious, she'll be resurrected, right? The team head over to the Stadium of Sacred Fire. The Ode of Resurrection is performed, but something goes wrong. When Mavuika walks through the sacred flame, she's unable to locate Kachina within the Night Kingdom or locate her ancient name. There are NPCs who doubt Kachina's victor- Oh, shut up. The Pyro Archon makes the call to suspend the pilgrimage until an investigation is conducted. Unrest in the Night Kingdom is causing the Ode of Resurrection to be ineffective. Due to the recent attacks on the people of the Springs, Mavuika suspects that the Abyss has found a new way to destroy Natlan. With the pilgrimage suspended, contending fire won't be produced to keep the sacred flame burning. Remember, the sacred fire is what's keeping Natlan from getting completely destroyed by the Abyss. While the group volunteers to investigate Kachina's whereabouts, Mavuika figures out a way to keep the sacred flame burning. So here's the plan to rescue Kachina. First, the Masters of the Night Wind is a Natlan tribe, and they have a technique that can extract an ancient name from the Night Kingdom. If Kachina's ancient name can be found, Mavuika will be able to pinpoint her current location in the Night Kingdom. It's like her GPS tracker, so they need to find her ancient name first, and it's quote-unquote easier to retrieve. Second is the hard part. The group will have to go into the Night Kingdom and rescue Kachina. Under normal circumstances, only the consciousness or the soul can enter the Night Kingdom since it's a spiritual realm, but there is a way to physically enter. But physically entering the Night Kingdom will cause it to repel you, and the Abyss will most likely be in pursuit. Citlali of the Masters of the Night Wind tribe created the Spirit Speaker Stone, an artifact that can be used to communicate with the Wayab, and due to its spiritual properties, it can also be used to find an ancient name within the Night Kingdom. Kinich claimed to have delivered this artifact to his tribe, the Scions of the Canopy, so the team heads over there to look for the Spirit Speaker Stone. Before they leave, Mualani gives Mavuika Atea's talisman. Kinich and Yansan stay behind to assist Mavuika. We find out that Natlan is currently at its breaking point. The gradual corrosion caused by the abyss has resulted in a massive shortage of pyro energy. This corrosion and shortage of pyro might be why Traveler can't resonate with pyro at the Statue of the Seven. It might also be why, out of the current characters we know that have visions or elemental powers, Mavuika is the only one with pyro. In order to keep the sacred flame burning, Mavuika offers to sacrifice her powers. Right on cue, Il Capitano shows up, and I'm telling you, the fight between Mavuika and Capitano is literally one of the best Genshin cutscenes. This scene had the Zenless Zone Zero budget for animation, I swear. Capitano declares that Mavuika is unable to rule as the Pyro Archon and challenges her to a duel. I don't want to dive into theory and speculation just yet, but I wanted to point out something. Capitano glows during the battle, and it's reminiscent of the Natlan exclusive mechanism Night Soul's Blessing. It might be the hint wink wink that Capitano's actually from Natlan. If that's the case, then the theories of him being the Bloodstained Knight from the lore of the Mondstadt artifact set probably die here, but we'll explore that a little later. Mavuika is able to hold off Capitano and the Fatui retreat. So much for being the #1 Fatui Harbinger. I mean, I like him, okay? I think he's great. Seriously, I promise, I'm not being sarcastic. If you like a character enough to sass them, that means you really love them. That's why I always make fun of things as flat out. According to Mavuika, whoever rescued Capitano came from the Masters of the Nightwind, meaning someone from the tribe is working with Capitano and is a traitor to Natlan. Mavuika sacrifices her power to keep the sacred flame going. Meanwhile, the group gets help from Kenichi's tribe and acquire the Spirit Speaker Stone. There they meet Vichama, a legendary warrior and ancient name bearer who is able to use the Spirit Speaker Stone to retrieve Kachina's ancient name. Vichama agrees to help in exchange for a favor. During a Night Warden war 5 years ago, a wounded Vichama lost his friend Malko to the Abyss. Vichama agrees to find Kachina's name for the chance to retrieve Malko's as well in an attempt to revive him. Vichama and the team activate the Spirit Speaker Stone and fight off the Abyss as they try to retrieve Kachina's ancient name. They successfully secure Kachina's name, and Vichama dangerously tries to retrieve his friend Malko's. Traveler assists by purifying Vichama in order to cancel out his exposure to abyssal corrosion. If you can't tell from the button mashing, I was panicking during this part. Chaska destroys the Spirit Speaker Stone in order to free Vichama from its grasp, so unfortunately, they're unable to secure Malko's ancient name. Malko has been dead for 5 years, meaning it's probably too late to rescue him from the Night Kingdom. Mavuika had mentioned that staying too long in the Night Kingdom will cause your soul to become one with the Sea of Souls there. What they are able to retrieve, though, is a fragment of Malko's dying memory. Vichama gets closure over his friend's death, and it's time for the next phase of the plan. We're briefly introduced to Koichi, Chaska's younger sister. When she was a child, Chaska had a rare disease and was abandoned. She was raised by the Kukusors until she was adopted by Koichi's family. Koichi is just an overprotective younger sister, but she's also a skilled doctor who's good at treating people who have been exposed to abyssal corrosion during the Night Warden Wars. The team head back to the stadium and catch up with Mavuika. She reveals that she sacrificed her powers to keep the sacred fire going. This has to be kept a secret because if the Fatui find out, well, you can imagine, they'd use this opportunity to yoink her gnosis too. Mavuika takes them to a room of various mementos she collected. All of these artifacts belong to previous heroes of Natlan. Atea's talisman is among them. If you look closely, you'll see the battle pass weapon, the talking stick, which belonged to Tenoch, a tribeless hero from 500 years ago. Arguably, one of Mavuika's most precious mementos is a photo of her family. These mementos and artifacts will come into play later. Mavuika and the group use Kachina's ancient name to pinpoint her exact location in the Night Kingdom. Through an apparition, Kachina claims that the Wayub are being affected by the Abyss, meaning its power is weakening. Abyssal corrosion of the Wayub is probably what's keeping the Ode of Resurrection from working on Kachina. Now that they know Kachina's location, Iansen, Chaska, Mualani, Paimon, and Traveler head to the Night Kingdom. The Abyss ripped open a portal to the Night Kingdom, and it's located in a ruin under Natlan. This is super cool. So these underground ruins belong to an incredibly advanced ancient dragon civilization. These are literally the primordial dragons. As a quick recap, the original species of Teyvat before humans were the dragons, and their rulers the 7 dragon sovereigns. We know of 2 so far, Dendro Sovereign Apep and Sumeru, and Nuvaled, who is the successor of the Hydro Sovereign. Makes sense because Natlan is the nation of dragons, so it's literally on top of the ruins of these primordial dragons. With the mention of the primordial dragons, it just really feels like we're getting closer to the crux of Genshin's overall plot. And I mean, this detail surpasses just the isolated lore in the regions. If you're interested in learning more details about the early history of Teyvat and the dragons, you can watch this video here. The team locates the portal to the Night Kingdom and dive in. To their dismay, the Night Kingdom is overrun by the Abyss. The only way out of this realm is to pray to the crack in the sky. An apparition appears before them, and surprisingly, it turns out to be the remnants of Vichama's dead friend, Malko. Vichama's earlier attempts to retrieve his friend's ancient name weren't just in vain, since although he wasn't able to bring his friend back, he was able to pull some pieces of his soul together in the Night Kingdom. Malko guides the group to Kachina. While wandering the Night Kingdom, keep an eye out for the celestial nail that's floating in the sky. It makes sense that it's here because they're allegedly meant to ward off abyssal power. Kachina is found, but their work here isn't over. Kachina is desperate to save the Wayab who'd been protecting her from the Abyss, so the group follows. It's here they meet the Wayab of Kachina's tribe. We also get debated because I thought the Pyro Abyss Lector that shows up here is Enjo, but it's sadly not, it's a wannabe. And this wannabe literally kills whatever's left of Malko, man. RIP for real this time, Malko. So with the power of friendship, I'm not joking, they actually say that. With the power of friendship, the group defeats the Abyss Lector. After the battle, Mualani's ancient name starts glowing, and she receives a vision of the past from Tupac, the previous bearer of her ancient name. This vision reveals that there was an ancient plan to ultimately save Natlan from the Abyss. The group purify the Wayab before heading towards their exit. The Abyss is quickly catching up to them, but they're helped by a Seelie. I just know all the Columbina mains were screaming when they saw this, and don't worry, because I was screaming too. The team is unfortunately unable to escape the Night Kingdom, but they are saved by Mavuika's projection of her consciousness. Mavuika was able to save them by sacrificing all of the mementos and artifacts she'd saved. Due to their sentimental value, these mementos contain small amounts of contending fire, enough to rescue the team from the Night Kingdom. I just checked the footage again, and man, she burned her family photo too. It's gone from the desk. It's here we finally find out what this ancient plan to save Natlan is, and we also get a preview of what the next Archon quest could entail. Natlan is on the verge of destruction and has a year left before it's completely destroyed by the Abyss. During the Cataclysm 500 years ago, all the nations of Teyvat were invaded by the Abyss. Natlan suffered the worst due to them not having stable or deep-rooted ley lines. As a refresher, ley lines are a network of elemental energy and memories of everything that has happened in Teyvat and in the Abyss. The Night Kingdom essentially act as Natlan's ley lines, so similarly to ley lines, the Night Kingdom contains the memories of Natlan. With the Abyss taking over the Night Kingdom, it's able to deduce Natlan's weak spots and attack accordingly. The Pyro Archon from 500 years ago came up with a plan with the heroes of the 6 tribes of that time to ultimately save Natlan from the Abyss. The Pyro Archon from that time is actually Mavuika. 500 years ago, Mavuika placed her life within the sacred flame in order to be resurrected in the future when the plan needed to be in full effect. This was her way of escaping death by aging. This also means in her duties as the Pyro Archon, Mavuika unfortunately had to understandably abandon her family 500 years ago. Over the years of her absence, the elected Pyro Archons would rebuild Natlan and restore the strength of the Wayab. Once the tribe was back to its full strength, the tribe's Wayab would select one hero, indicating the tribe was ready for what should be the nation's final war with the Abyss. These 6 elected heroes would join the Pyro Archon into battle. But there's a problem. When Mualani received a vision of the Archon's plan through Tupac, this defined her as her tribe's chosen hero. But due to the deterioration of the Night Kingdom, the connection between the spiritual realm and the physical realm has been weakening. This means although the 6 heroes have already been chosen, some of them haven't received the intel for this plan from their ancient name. The name bearers have to establish this connection to their name to know what the plan is. The Pyro Archon doesn't want to force this connection because she wants to believe in the power of the Wayab and the people of Natlan. Time is running out though, and Mavuika did say there's only one path that leads to Natlan's future. The known heroes are Mualani, Kinich, Shilonen of the Children of Echoes, and Yansan of the Collective of Plenty. This leaves 2 heroes, one from the Masters of the Nightwind and the other from the Flower Feather clan. Natlan celebrates Kachina's resurrection, so the team is momentarily able to rest. Traveler uses this time to talk to Mavuika. She tries to encourage Traveler to join the upcoming battle since their resistance and ability to purify the abyss could be of use. If Traveler agrees to join, they will have a brand new ancient name given to them. This is interesting because Traveler is a descender, meaning the Airman soul contains no memories or records of them. But if they possess an ancient name, this would mean that their adventures in Natlan will be remembered by the people for years to come. There are some strict rules that need to be met, but Xilonen is apparently able to forge Traveler an ancient name. Act 2 ends with a really eerie cutscene about Capitano. The Fatui have unfortunately found out that the Pyro Archon has lost her powers. It could mean that there's more than one Natlan trader in our midst. The name in question marks is probably the Natlan trader Movica was previously talking about, who I suspect is probably Ororon. In the Natlan Ignition teaser, you can see Ororon standing next to Capitano. If it's him, then we can say that Ororon is from the Masters of the Nightwind, same tribe as Itlali, and it'd be cool if he was the tribe's chosen hero and he has some redemption arc later on. Act 2, Blackstone under a Whitestone, ends here. If you stay at the end, you can choose to ask Movica some questions, and I know we probably have a lot. So in this section, we're gonna analyze what we learned about Natlan and go over some post-Archon Quest theories and speculations. Why can't Traveler resonate with the pyro element at the Statue of the Seven? According to Movica, the gradual corrosion caused by the Abyss has resulted in a massive shortage of pyro energy. This corrosion and shortage of pyro might be why Traveler can't resonate with pyro at the Statue of the Seven, so it seems like until we significantly clear the abyssal corrosion, we won't get to use Pyro Traveler. For now at least, because at some point, Traveler has to be the Prism Master of all elements. Why haven't we seen any Natlan NPCs in Teyvat until now? Realistically, we've seen 1 or 2 in all 4 years that the game's been out. Movica answers this question at the end of the Archon Quest. One reason for the people of Natlan never leaving is due to the long-standing effects of the Abyss. The people's survival is tied to the Wayab, but the Wayab's powers have limits. They can't offer their people the same degree of protection outside of Natlan. Something interesting happens, so when the people of Natlan do decide to leave the nation, they can suffer from memory loss and emotional issues. It's very reminiscent of the Vision Hunt decree in Inazuma, where those who had their visions taken away experienced something similar. Leaving Natlan requires permission from the chief of the tribe and the tribe's respective Wayab. Since the people understand that leaving Natlan means one less person assisting in the fight against the Abyss, for the most part, people stay out of honor for their nation and culture. So, Movica is human? How is she so strong? Okay, this question might sound simple or mundane, but this is going to include some deep lore diving, okay, and theory crafting, so bear with me. Short answer, yes, Movica is a normal human. In fact, all the previous Pyro Archons before her are normal humans too. She ages just like a normie human, which is why she needed to stow her life away inside the Sacred Flame in order to escape aging and reincarnate 500 years later towards the end of the Ancient Plan to save Natlan from the Abyss. Honestly, Movica figured out the most effective anti-aging serum. We need the skincare gurus on this ASAP. Even the first Pyro Archon was a human. I can't believe they didn't tell us this in the Archon quests, but there's already a way to find out who the first Pyro Archon is. We can try to use all this information to trace the source of Movica's powers, and by extension, the power of the Pyro Archons. This part of the video will contain spoilers for the Natlan World Quest, so just be prepared. The ancient history of Natlan deserves its own deep dive video, but for now, I'll just cover it from a surface level and regurgitate the lore relevant to the Archon quests. I also need time to comb over all this information again, cause it was a lot. If you play the Tribal Quest and read the new book Records of Hanan Pacha, you find out that the first Pyro Archon is Xbalanque. Some of you might recognize this name from Neuvillette character introduction, and he's referred to as one entombed with primal fire. The first records of Teyvat are found in the Enkanomiya series, the Byakuya Koku Collection, and in it is the story before Sun and Moon, which tells us how Teyvat was created. The original species of Teyvat were the dragons, with their rulers the 7 dragon sovereigns. Each sovereign ruled over one of the 7 major elements we know today. An alien god called the Primordial One came to colonize the planet for the arrival of humans. It defeated the 7 dragon sovereigns with the help of the Shining Shades. These 4 Shining Shades are basically gods created by the Primordial One. For the longest time, we only knew of one Shining Shade, and it's a name you're probably familiar with: Istaroth, the missing goddess of time and moments. Istaroth was first referenced in the Raiden Shogun Story Quest Act 2 and in the records of Enkanomiya. She was also most likely the goddess that used to be worshipped by Mondstadt alongside the Anima Archon. The Nameless Island might have been her place of worship. The 4 Shining Shades are more powerful than the Archons since A refers to Istaroth as a higher power. Stories about the Shining Shades are found scattered across various materials, but one significant place we can find information on them is in the lore of the Fontaine glider, Wings of Merciful Wrathful Waters. In it, we read that when the first heart was removed, the envoy of Celestia, the leader upon whose shoulders lay the duty to create life, came to the great primeval sea, and there she created another heart. This is the story of how one of the Shining Shades created Egeria, the previous Hydro Archon before Focalors. Envoy is a common term used to refer to these Shining Shades, and this particular shade in the Fontaine gliders is the Goddess of Life. You might be seeing a pattern now. Goddess of Life, Goddess of Time. These elements, for lack of a better term, correspond with the Genshin artifact sets. Flower of Life, Plume of Death, Sands of Time, Goblet of Space, and Circlet of Divine Order. Which means if we have goddesses of time and life, then there should be gods for space and death, right? It seems to be correct because during the Natlan Archon quest, Melvika says something very interesting. When the first Pyro Archon Xbalanque ascended to the Divine Throne, he borrowed the powers of Renova and established the rules of Natlan. Notice how the name Renova is formatted similarly to the way A refers to Istaroth. The rules of Natlan include the system for which future Pyro Archons are chosen, and the system by which heroes are resurrected. This means Renova could be the name of the Shining Shade of Death. All the gods in Genshin Impact are based off demons from the Ars Goetia. Paimon, Baal, Beelzebub, Barbatos, Focalors, etc. Renova could be based off the demon Renovi, who is said to be the taker of old souls, often coming to Earth to harvest souls of decrepit humans and animals near death. In the Natlan World Quest, you'll find a mural of the Pyro Dragon Sovereign killing what appears to be one of the Shining Shades. This is a quick off-tangent theory, but the Natlan artifact set Obsidian Codex refers to a god that lives in the Night Kingdom. This god could be the remaining conscience of the Shining Shade of Death. Instead of truly dying, it may have created and retreated into the spiritual realm of the Night Kingdom. This god heard the cries of the people of early Natlan and created the first Wyob. The Night Kingdom is the land of souls, and if a soul stays too long in the Night Kingdom, it becomes a part of the Sea of Souls there. It could mean that the Wyob are a collective conscience, a hive mind. It's not one particular person or entity, but it could be a culmination of all the souls particular to a tribe. So Xbalanque used the power of the Shining Shade of Death to create the rules of Natlan, so this could be a hint that the Shining Shade of Death isn't actually dead. Just note that Egeria got punished in Fontaine because creating humans is a big no-no to Celestia, but Xbalanque is just bringing existing humans back to life. Now, how does this tie in with the power of the Pyro Archons? According to the records of Hananpacha, Xbalanque defeated the Pyro Dragon Sovereign. Neuvillette dragon cousin maybe twice or thrice removed? Theoretically, Xbalanque should be able to rule the Pyro element and Pyro throne, right? The Sage of the Stolen Flame was a dragon underling of the Pyro Sovereign, and this sage stole phlogiston from the dragons and gave it to the humans, in hopes that one day humans and Saurians could live together in harmony and use this elevated form of Pyro together. Xbalanque and this Sage of Stolen Flame entered the cleansing fire in Natlan's volcano to purge all curses and calamities from the land. The thing is, no one knows what happened to Xbalanque and the Dragon Sage when they walked through the flames of the volcano. I think this is the moment Xbalanque became one entombed with the primal fire. This is a theory, but I think this is the moment Xbalanque himself became the sacred flame that protects Natlan from the abyss. Which means all the Pyro Archons probably use Xbalanque's divine power when they ascend to Archonhood. One detail that might support this theory of Xbalanque actually being the sacred flame is what's being used as its fuel. Archons derive their power from the collective belief of the people they rule over. In the Fontaine Archon quest, Indemnitium is an energy source comprised of the Fontainians' belief in justice and the Archon that embodies this very ideal. In order to kill an Archon, you need to use its own power source against it. Contending fire is what keeps the sacred flame burning, and similarly, contending fire is produced by the people of Natlan's belief in battle and the pilgrimage, collective belief which would technically power an Archon. It might also be the reason why only the Pyro Archon is the strongest as well. They're siphoning the powers of Xbalanque, who might literally still have the borrowed powers of the Shining Shade of Death, which should theoretically be stronger than your typical Archon. Perhaps the elected Pyro Archons are given the ancient name of Xbalanque when they ascend to Archonhood, and it's how they're able to use the power of the sacred flame, but also return it when needed. Speaking of Pyro Archon, on to the next relevant question. Who or what is Capitano? Okay, this section is going to have heavy speculations and copium because what we can speculate about him will come from the recent Archon quests. I know there are theories about Capitano being Movuika's dad, but here's why I think that might not be the case. According to Mika's character story 4, Capitano is said to have blue eyes. Movuika's father in her family photo doesn't really match that description. I know physical transformations could be a thing, but I feel like there are other potential identities to consider for Capitano instead. There's a theory that you probably heard from a lot of people already, but there might be some bits and pieces of evidence to support it. Is Capitano the brother of Xbalanque, the first Pyro Archon? Capitano's battle with Movuika reveals a little bit about what his involvement with Natlan will be, so let's pay attention to what he says at the moment. Eyes off his chest, please. He says the secret of the ley lines is no secret to him, meaning he seems to be aware of Natlan's lack of ley lines and potentially how the Night Kingdom works. He says, long have they been destined for ruin. I love this line because I wonder if this is a hint towards the Fatui's plans to burn down the Irminsul tree. Don't think I forgot about the Tore burning it down, Hoyo. He says, since the oath made 500 years ago remains unfulfilled, what use is a Gnosis in the Pyro Archon's hands? Capitano is aware of the Archon's plan to save Natlan from 500 years ago. Either Capitano is 500 years old and he's managed to stay alive for this long, or he's from Natlan and he was given an ancient name of a hero who knew about the plan. He personally has plans to rewrite the rules of Natlan and suggests that the old world has to be destroyed. This has long been the mantra of the Fatui, but think of it. If he was the brother to the first Pyro Archon, of course he's going to feel entitled to the role if he feels the current authority is insufficient. But where are the people getting this brother-twin theory anyways? I'm guessing it has to do with the real-life Mayan legend of Xbalanque and Hunahpu, who are divine twins who defeated the gods of the underworld out of revenge for their dead father. The gods actually take the head of Hunahpu, but somehow Hunahpu is still alive, just headless. In some versions of the legends, Xbalanque gives Hunahpu a turtle shell for a helmet before they battle the gods. This is purely speculation, but it'd be cool if Capitano was an Alphonse Elric type situation. Somehow he transmuted his soul into a set of armor. And hey, that could be why he's immune to Natlan's heat. Honestly, I'll take an empty suit of armor instead of Movuika's sister Hine or Firefly under the suit. In this case, the blue eyes that Mika saw could have just been some ethereal glow or something. But there's another detail in the Obsidian Codex. The dragon sage of the stolen flame from earlier, the one who introduced phlogiston to the humans, had a goal of evolution, merging two species and two bloodlines as one, a human-dragon hybrid. It's prophesied that the savior of Natlan might allegedly come from these two bloodlines merged. Capitano could be this human-dragon hybrid savior of Natlan, or he might be trying to be Natlan's savior instead. Maybe he needs to rewrite Natlan's rules in order for him to be the prophesied savior. Remember, Capitano is the first of the 11 Fatui Harbingers. In terms of power scaling, the top 3 can rival the powers of gods, so him being a human-dragon hybrid also seems pretty likely. But real quick before I end this video and potentially make a part 2, 3, or 4. Movuika mentions that gods are able to extend a human's life by using a certain amount of divine power or subjecting them to a curse. So, I just really want to talk to the specific god that did this to Khaenri'ah. Now, there's still a whole bunch of world quests and documents for me to explore, so don't be surprised if in the next couple weeks I release more videos on Natlan because my brain is literally about to explode. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next video. I'm your Leafy Lore Keeper Minzlif, and I read the Genshin Impact lore so that you don't have to.